Celebrating 40 years was a very big area for us because it was almost 4 decades of existence with Shorasaman and the Pujo to that extent, and therefore we wanted to do something very big which has a tribute to Calcutta and West Bengal in terms of what we could kind of put in. And therefore we looked at something which was very iconic, something which was very typical for the city and for West Bengal to that extent, and we really then got on to the yellow cabs, the yellow taxi to that extent, because they have been an integral part of this entire celebration. They have been an integral part of the Pujo. They have been ferrying customers to Pandal trails, to the artists in terms of the open paras and the crowded paras to that extent, and even the artisans in terms of ferrying their straw and clay from various places to that extent. So they have been a very integral part, and we felt that it could be really iconic, it could be something very good if we could kind of really take up the taxis and let them represent each of the generations, each of the decades for the last 40 years, and that could be a very strong way in terms of what we could kind of bring in. And therefore we took all the taxis and we looked at doing exteriors and interiors in the spirit of the decade in terms of what the transformation was all about, and we felt that this could be a real kind of tribute, a very strong tribute to the tradition, to the heritage, to the festiveness of this occasion, which could kind of come alive. From the time in 85 when we started, it was something which was far more orthodox from a point of view of just idol worship to that extent, and the whole element of bringing the fact that it is not only about the esteemed devotion which is coming in, but it is also about creativity, design, the whole area of making it social, the whole area of making it thematic, making it larger than life to that extent. The fact that today each pandal is a celebration, each pandal is something which people look forward to, and there is an inherent quotient of creativity which kind of comes in. I think that is something which we have been very strong in terms of seeding into the environment. The other thing in terms of what we see is that today the whole movement from a point of view of saying that the cultural and the ethnic elements, whether it is the lights, whether it is some of the symbols, I think they have been kept alive very culturally. At the same time, we have moved with the generations, we have moved with the community in terms of what they would like to that extent. So the event kind of gets into a stature, it kind of gets the whole festivities and the involvement of the people and the community around very strongly. At the same time, it has moved from the point of view of being a little bit orthodox to something which is social, to something digital now, and something which is thematic and also very immersive. So I think that's been a very strong contribution, we think, over the last 40 years we have been able to make. When we looked at each of the generations, we were very clear that we would need basically a full concept for people to really conceptualize what each decade stands for. So for the first decade, we chose Bikramjit Paul from the point of view of what he was seeing in terms of looking at putting from the nuance of the orthodox idol worship to the point of view of socialism kind of coming into that extent, because that was an era when basically the elitism was moving into a little bit of a socialism to that extent in terms of what was there, and therefore from his eyes, his expressions, we could kind of really culminate that. Similarly, when we looked at for the second era, we looked at Meenakshi, which came in very strongly, and Meenakshi's view was from the whole point in terms of saying that the whole area of socialism which was coming along with the elements which are, whether it is the iconic the tiger, whether it is the Chandangiri lights, whether it is the Alpona, it is, I think she imagined from that angle very strongly in terms of how she was embracing the whole thing which came in, and she looked at possibly the fabrics, the wallpapers, the colors kind of adorning in that manner which came in. Similarly, the third artist, which was Shayan, I think Shayan looked at from the point of view of looking at it very thematic and very immersive storytelling, larger than life kind of a story, and that's what he's kind of really put from his angle in terms of what's coming. So very strongly from that genre is what Shayan was standing to that. And similarly Shishti, how she looked at the whole last decade, and she's looked at it from a very Gen Z point of view and looked at from how that community embraces this part of the culture which comes in, the fact that it is about emojis, it is the fact about far more something digital in terms of what comes into that extent, and at the same time it is Cosmo, but it still has the elements of Calcutta which kind of comes into that extent. So that was the criteria how we used each of the artists in terms of getting their thought process, their thinking and their design sensibilities to design all these 4 decades.